Right now, somewhere in Europe, a pharmaceutical shipment is being delayed by a sudden, massive winter storm.
Right.
But back at the corporate headquarters, there's no human logistics manager panicking. In fact, no human is even touching a keyboard.
Because an AI is already handling it.
Exactly. It didn't just flag the weather delay. It
No.
has already, cross-referenced the temperature thresholds of the drugs, renegotiated a localized shipping contract, rerouted the trucks, and automatically filed the updated customs paperwork for the new border crossing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
We're looking at a reality
Hmm.
where the chatbot you have to manually type a prompt into is, well, officially dead.
Right.
We're now in the era of AI that talks to itself, makes plans, and executes them.
It is a profound architectural shift. I mean, what you're describing is the death of the isolated reactive prompt.
Right.
And it's the birth of what the industry calls autonomous multi-agent systems. And for anyone building or managing enterprise architecture today, this is the dividing line between systems that scale and systems that just stagnate.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this isn't some futuristic prediction or a white paper concept. The reality, right now in 2026, according to recent data from Forrested Research, is that over 50% of knowledge work already involves conversational AI.
Mm-hmm.
But the bots of 2023 and 2024, the frustrating, rigid Q&A interfaces where you type a question and wait for a paragraph of text to drop down, those are being replaced. We've entered the era of agentic AI.
And that distinction is the most critical strategic variable on your desk if you are a European business leader or CTO listening to this right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are seeing data from McKinsey showing that 62% of enterprises are actively experimenting with generative AI. But the truly telling metric comes from Deloitte's latest survey.
What did they find?
Scaled AI projects, meaning systems actually deployed in production, not just sitting in a sandbox somewhere, have doubled year over year.
Doubled. Wow. Which tells us the experimental novelty phase of generative AI is definitively over.
Mm-hmm.
People are expecting real, measurable returns on this technology.
Precisely why our mission for this deep dive is to map out this exact transition. Organizations are moving decisively away from isolated single-function pilot projects.
Right, they're graduating from that.
Exactly. They are moving into production-grade, autonomous, multi-agent systems. So our goal today is to look under the hood at the technical drivers making this possible, examine the very real-world ROI, and crucially, figure out how to navigate the massive regulatory shifts happening in Europe.
Because the regulations are changing fast.
They are. And if you understand the underlying mechanics of these systems, you can turn regulatory compliance into a massive, defensible, competitive moat.
And the mechanics are exactly where we need to start. If we are moving beyond those basic conversational bots, what is the actual technological leap that makes an agent different from a standard AI model?
Well, it's a fundamental change in capability.
To me, it feels conceptually like the difference between a digital vending machine and an empowered employee. Like with traditional AI, it's a vending machine. You push a very specific button, you type your text prompt, you get a pre-programmed text response or a generated image dropped into the tray.
Right, it waits for you.
Yeah, it's entirely reactive.
Yeah.
You have to initiate every single step.
That's a great conceptual baseline. To take that a step further into the actual architecture, traditional AI operates linearly. Prompt in, output, out.
Simple as that.
But an agentic system involves an AI model wrapped in a cognitive framework. It has the ability to perceive its environment, formulate a multi-step plan to achieve a broader goal, use external software tools to gather data, and then execute workflows autonomously.
But the real enterprise value in 2026 isn't just one super smart agent, right? It's when we scale this up into multi-agent systems.
Yes, exactly.
Because instead of having one massive overarching AI trying to do everything, which is usually what causes those infamous AI hallucinations or logic failures, you deploy multiple highly specialized agents.
And this is where we need to move beyond the vending machine metaphor. A better way to visualize a multi-agent system is to look at a professional restaurant kitchen.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, you don't have one person trying to chop the vegetables, cook the meat, plate the food, and serve the table simultaneously. That leads to chaos.
Absolute disaster.
Right. In a multi-agent AI architecture, you have a sous chef agent dedicated exclusively to prepping data. You have an expediter agent whose only job is checking the quality and safety of the output. And you have a head chef agent orchestrating the final delivery. By restricting each agent's focus, you drastically reduce errors.
Looking at the customer service example from our sources, that kitchen brigade metaphor maps perfectly. When a customer reaches out with a complex problem, you don't just have one generic bot trying to soothe them.
No, that never works well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have a triage agent whose only system prompt and capability is to classify the issue.
Hmm.
Then it hands the context over to a technical troubleshooting agent.
And it doesn't stop there.
Right, because while that's happening, a completely separate agent is quietly checking the inventory database via an API and application programming interface. Essentially, the bridge that lets the AI talk to the warehouse software to see if a replacement part is available. And a fourth agent is analyzing the sentiment to decide if a human needs to take over.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of how they communicate. They aren't just firing chat messages back and forth like humans in a Slack channel.
So what are they doing?
They are updating a shared context window. Think of it as a central, highly secure digital whiteboard. The triage agent writes down the classification. The inventory agent reads that classification, pings the warehouse API, and writes the stock level on the same whiteboard.
Oh, so everyone has access to the same life data.
Exactly. The orchestration layer reads the entire board and formulates the next move. It is an orchestrated framework where each agent operates strictly within its defined boundaries and tool access.
Okay, but I have to pause here. Because when I picture agents reading a digital whiteboard, I'm still picturing text. And human problems aren't neatly formatted text strings.
That's very true.
If I'm a frustrated customer, my problem might be a photo of a crushed laptop screen or a rambling voice note about how the software is glitching. Wait, but if they are just passing text prompts back and forth, how does this actually handle complex, messy human problems?
That points directly to the biggest technical leap of 2026 native multimodal architectures. In the past, if you sent an AI a photo, a separate piece of software had to awkwardly translate that image into text.
Like you would literally type out, this is a picture of a broken screen.
Yeah, exactly, and then feed that text to the AI. It was slow and lost a massive amount of context. Modern agentic AI integrates text, voice, images, and video processing into a single shared reasoning space.
So it's not translating the image into text first. It's actually like understanding the pixel data the same way it understands a word.
Exactly. It maps visual data, audio waveforms, and text tokens into the same neural network space. They are equivalent data sources. Let's take your messy human problem.
Okay.
A customer uploads a photo of a physically damaged product and simultaneously speaks their complaint into their phone via a voice note. The agentic system processes the stress fractures in the photo, processes the emotional frustration in the audio waveform, cross-references both with the warranty database.
That's crazy fast.
And then it can immediately synthesize a personalized animated video tutorial showing the customer exactly how to unlatch the specific broken component.
That fundamentally changes the unit economics of a return policy. Synthesizing a video response based on native understanding of a photo and a voice note in real time.
And the business impact is staggering. Our sources indicate that these multimodal agentic systems autonomously resolve 60 to 70% of visual-heavy scenarios that previously required a human agent to jump on a video support call.
60 to 70%?
Yeah.
Wow. If these multimodal systems are freeing up 70% of human labor in visual support, that labor has to go somewhere, and those cost savings have to show up on a balance sheet. Are we actually seeing that in the wild? If I'm a CPO, I need to see the practical application beyond the theory.
The numbers from the field are driving the rapid adoption curve we discussed earlier. By automating these entire workflows again, not just answering frequently asked questions, but actively retrieving documents, checking account statuses, and performing guided troubleshooting, enterprises are seeing a massive drop in tickets.
How much of a drop are we talking about?
A 30 to 40% reduction in overall support ticket volume. And for the tickets that do escalate, there's a 25 to 35% improvement in first contact resolution.
Because the AI isn't just guessing, right? It has the inventory data, the user history, and the warranty status, all preloaded on that digital whiteboard before it ever makes a suggestion.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the impact goes far beyond simple customer service routing. What we are truly talking about is complex operational orchestration in the physical world. Let's revisit the pharmaceutical distributor example you used at the start of the show.
Right, the AI managing the delayed trucks. How does that actually work on a technical level? Like, how does an AI know a truck is cold?
It relies on IoT, the Internet of Things. These are physical temperature sensors placed inside the shipping pallets that constantly broadcast data. In a multi-agent system, you have an agent permanently assigned to monitor that incoming data stream.
Okay.
Its only job is to watch the temperature graph. A second agent is connected to global weather APIs and traffic databases. If the weather agent detects a storm delaying the truck, and the temperature agent realizes the truck's cooling system won't last the extra 6 hours, the system triggers the orchestration agent.
And the orchestration agent is the one with the authority to actually do something about it.
Correct. It autonomously accesses the logistics software to reroute the compromised batch to a closer secondary facility, updates the complex regulatory customs documentation required for the new route.
Just automatically.
Exactly. And it triggers an automated replacement order from the nearest warehouse. It does all of this autonomously within established financial thresholds without waiting for a human to wake up and read an alert.
It's literally shifting the concept of an organizational chart. You have these digital workers taking on highly specific, high-leverage roles. To make this really concrete, look at the case study mentioned in the sources from AetherLink's partner, Instinct Tools, regarding their Genie Accelerator platform.
That's a great example.
Yeah, they deployed this for B2B lead generation. And what caught my eye wasn't just the automation, but the separation of duties. They broke it down to mirror a human sales floor.
Sales is a fascinating domain for this because it requires nuance and extreme accuracy. A bad automated email can burn a major client relationship. How did Instinct Tools structure the agents to prevent that?
They isolated the context, just like your kitchen brigade example. They created an intake agent whose sole function is to receive raw leads from various channels, standardize the messy data into a clean format, and enrich it with firmographic data.
Right.
And for our listeners, firmographic data is basically the B2B equivalent of demographics that pulls in the company's size, annual revenue, industry vertical, and software stack. Once that profile is built, the intake agent passes it to a qualification agent.
And notice the mechanism there. The qualification agent doesn't have to search the web or clean data. It receives a perfectly structured file, evaluates it against the company's specific acquisition criteria, and assigns a numerical score.
Exactly. And if the score meets the threshold, it moves to the engagement agent. This agent is the only one with access to the outbound email API. It takes the enriched firmographic data and generates highly personalized outreach messaging tailored to that specific company's pain points.
Beautifully segmented.
Yeah. And finally, a coordination layer manages the responses and flags exactly when a human sales rep needs to step in to negotiate the final deal.
The brilliance of that architecture is accountability. By orchestrating specialized agents, the system inherently becomes easier to audit. If a bad email goes out, you don't have to debug a massive black box AI model.
You just look at the one specific agent.
Right, you just check the prompt constraints on the engagement agent. And the bottom line for that specific Genie implementation was a 20% efficiency improvement in lead processing right out of the gate.
Which translates directly to faster processing and a significantly lower cost per lead. And according to the broader data in our sources, mature enterprise deployments of these multi-agent systems are averaging 30 to 45% cost reductions in automated functions.
That's massive.
Paired with a 15 to 25% revenue uplift from the proactive engagement they enable.
But we must attach a massive caveat to those numbers for anyone mapping out a budget. This is not plug-and-play magic. The enterprise data clearly shows it typically takes 12 to 18 months for these complex deployments to fully mature.
Right, it's not overnight.
No, not at all. You have to integrate the APIs, tune the agent system prompts, and let the system run in parallel with human oversight to learn your specific domain logic before you realize that complete ROI.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because that timeline brings up the elephant in the room. If I am a CTO in Europe right now, and I'm looking at a 12 to 18-month deployment cycle for systems that will autonomously run my pharmaceutical supply chains or decide which enterprise clients get pitched.
Yeah.
Aren't I just walking into a massive compliance trap with the new EU AI Act? Like, isn't this going to be a bureaucratic nightmare?
This raises an important question, and it is the exact friction point every European enterprise is wrestling with today. The regulatory landscape has shifted dramatically.
Well, wait, let me push back on this, because you're about to tell me this regulation is a good thing.
Well, let's look at it.
The EU AI Act mandates impact assessments, mandatory human oversight, and continuous bias testing for anything classified as a high-risk application. In the real world of software development, that isn't a minor hurdle. That sounds like a 6-month delay on any deployment and slowing European innovation to a crawl while competitors elsewhere move faster.
I understand the skepticism, but we have to look at the reality of the market data. According to Deloitte's research, even though 62% of enterprises are aggressively experimenting with AI, only 28% have established formal AI governance frameworks.
That's a wild gap.
Think about what that means. You have massive corporations deploying systems capable of autonomous action, and over 70% of them have no formalized way to track how those systems make decisions. That is a catastrophic risk exposure waiting to happen.
Okay, so you're arguing the regulation is forcing necessary hygiene because companies aren't doing it themselves.
It is forcing hygiene, yes. But more importantly, it is creating a strategic imperative. The companies that are succeeding aren't viewing the EU AI Act as a bureaucratic tax. They are using what's called AI-led architecture to turn this compliance requirement into a highly defensible competitive advantage.
Let's break down AI-led architecture because that sounds like, corporate jargon. On a software level, what does that actually mean? How does compliance become a competitive moat?
It means building governance directly into the code from day one, rather than trying to slap a compliance dashboard on top of a finished product. Let's look at the concept of an automated audit log.
Okay.
In a poorly designed system, an audit log might just be a text file that says, engagement agent sent email to client at 4:00 p.m. That is useless for compliance. In an AI-led architecture, the audit log captures the cryptographic hash of the exact system state.
So it captures everything happening at that exact moment.
Right. It records the specific data retrieved from the CRM, the probability scores of the generated text tokens, the exact system prompt active at that millisecond, and the logic pathway the agent used to determine the client was qualified.
So it's essentially a flight data recorder for every single micro decision the AI makes.
Precisely. Now, connect that back to the market. The European market represents 16 trillion euros in GDP. B2B partners, enterprise clients, and consumers in that market are increasingly demanding AI governance assurance.
Because they can't afford the risk either.
Exactly. If you are a logistics provider, your clients want absolute mathematical proof that your AI won't discriminate against their suppliers, or leak their proprietary routing data to a competitor, or make an unexplainable autonomous decision that tanks $1 million shipment.
Trust is no longer just a brand feeling. Trust is a verifiable data output.
And that is your moat. If you design your multi-agent systems with this deep code-level explainability and establish clear, verifiable, human-in-the-loop triggers for high-stakes scenarios, you aren't just checking a box for European regulators. You are building a demonstrably reliable system.
That's a huge selling point.
Exactly. So while your competitors are duct-taping APIs together and scrambling to retrofit their Wild West deployments to avoid massive fines, you are walking into pitches with enterprise clients and saying, here is the exact mathematical audit trail of how our system operates safely. You win the contract because you can prove your system won't become a liability.
That makes a lot of sense. You earn the right to automate the hard stuff by proving you can govern it. So what does this all mean for the people listening? We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from native multimodal vector spaces to supply chain orchestration to the tactical realities of the EU AI Act.
We rarely have.
Let's distill this down. What is your absolute #1 takeaway from all this source material?
My #1 takeaway is that governance is the ultimate differentiator in 2026. Right now, it is incredibly easy for leadership teams to get distracted by the shiny capabilities of these agents. The fact that a system can synthesize a video from a frustrated voice note is technologically stunning.
It really is.
But the companies that will actually capture that 15 to 25% revenue uplift without getting crushed by regulatory violations or public relations disasters are the ones who embed automated audit logging and explicit explainability into their architecture from the very beginning. Manual oversight of hundreds of autonomous agents is physically impossible. Governance isn't an afterthought anymore. It is the absolute foundation of scaling AI in the enterprise.
That is a critical framing. For me, my #1 takeaway is the power of phased implementation. When you hear stories about autonomous agents managing global logistics and renegotiating contracts on the fly, it is very easy to feel paralyzed, like you need to overhaul your entire company infrastructure by next Tuesday or be left behind.
Which is the worst thing you can do.
Right. But the data shows the successful players do the exact opposite.
They don't try to boil the ocean.
Exactly. They focus on high volume, clearly defined workflows first. You take a process with strict, unarguable decision criteria, like the Instinct Tools example of standardizing messy lead data, and you deploy a specialized multi-agent architecture right there. You build your internal expertise, you prove the ROI to your board, you establish your baseline governance metrics, and only then do you scale up to the more complex, high-stakes domains. It is a strategic, measurable evolution.
And by taking that phased approach, you give your human workforce time to adapt to their new roles as orchestrators and supervisors of these digital systems, rather than feeling replaced by them.
Which leaves me with a final thought I want you, the listener, to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. We've talked about agents taking over lead qualification, frontline customer service, global supply chain logistics, and even complex troubleshooting. If highly specialized autonomous agents are now collaborating to run all these core daily operations, at what point does your company's actual organizational chart contain more AI agents than human employees? And when you reach that tipping point, what does human leadership even look like? Do you manage an ecosystem of agents the way you manage a department of people, or are we looking at the birth of an entirely new management discipline? Something to seriously think about as you plan your architecture and strategy for the rest of 2026. For more AI insights, visit AetherLink.ai.